All right, let's do it. Hello, how are you?
Good.
Welcome in. This is the Zilla Patch Podcast, episode 34. I can't believe I've done 34 episodes already. It seems wild. It's a good
Yeah,
fun
it's
though.
been
It's good
crazy.
fun though. Thanks for doing this today. I really appreciate it. First of all,
Thanks for having me.
standard old question to start the podcast. Give us a little bit of info on yourself. A little bit of a brief intro, like just tell us where you're from, what you do, why you stream, and all the cool stuff. Give it to us.
Well, my tag is Pancakes and Chill or Pancake and Chill. My friends call me Katy. I'm from the US. I live in the East Coast. I do mostly streams for charity. I started after I retired from the military. I'm a disabled veteran. I got medically discharged from the military. I decided I wanted to have fun gaming and streaming and make a living off of it, and to put a lot of money towards charity while I do it as well.
Very nice.
Um,
Very nice. So the reason you get into it obviously is just because of you love gaming, and you thought why not give it a go, see how we go, all that kind of stuff. Obviously, you love helping people. Obviously, being in the military as well. I mean, isn't that the reason you sign up in the first place? You want to help
yeah.
others. Tell us a little bit more about that if you can. A little bit more about like why you joined the military and what happened with that.
When I was a kid, I wanted to be in the military since I was a kid. And a lot of people in the US sign up to be in the military because there's a lot of like incentives like student loan repayment or
Mm.
like sign on bonuses. I didn't really know about any of that when I signed up. I like legitimately my only reason was to help people. I wanted to try to be part of something bigger. It wasn't until that I joined that I realized that that absolutely was not the case for the military in the US,
Mm.
sadly. um, I'm glad to be out of the military, but I am kind of thankful for the experiences I've had. I've met people from all over the world. I traveled to places I would never have gone if it wasn't for the military. Um,
Yeah.
but that was my legitimate reason when I first joined, was because I wanted to help people.
Yeah, I've had a lot of military and ex-military on the podcast, and like people who I've talked to on Twitch and stuff, and they say the same thing. So they all get in it for the right reasons and get out of it for the same. So
Mm,
it seems like a common thing. Do you know what I mean?
yeah.
So like even like we had Vanguard on not long ago, and he's active military, and he even said the same thing. He was like, "I love it, but at the same time, I hate it." It's just,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's always a love hate relationship with the military, and each branch has their own quirks. But
Yeah.
if you find somebody that is in the military and they're like gung ho everything about the military, like the military is their dad, and they live and breathe like the military, they're either crazy or like a super soldier. And it's rare that you find super soldiers, so most of them are crazy.
Just brainwashed, you reckon?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't call that pushing the line at all. For sure, some
Yeah.
people that I know and still know that are active in the military, for sure, absolutely. Just it gets me because let me give you a bit of advice if you're listening. It gets me because I've dated military men
Mm.
multiple times, and I still haven't learned my lesson. I think I have now, but I didn't before. They're awful. Like it's such a toxic environment sometimes because I've had people like that I've even dated or known that are like they'll join the military because they want to be like a hero. There's like a very hero mindset, especially for guys.
Mm.
That like, oh, I joined because I joined to like to fight overseas and like die for my country. And while that's a noble cause, you don't see that often. Like that's not a big thing right now because there's not many like big wars that are happening. I didn't see combat while I was overseas. Um,
Mm.
but you'll have soldiers that don't ever go overseas, or not even soldiers, different branches, they're not called soldiers, but you'll have people that are in the military that don't go overseas, and then they feel like this sense of unfulfillment because they don't die heroes. Like
Yeah.
the one of my exes was that way. He was just like, I didn't sign up to the military to be some security dude like scanning ID cards all day. This is not what I was meant for. I was meant to like die overseas as a hero. And noble as it is, I could never understand that.
Yeah.
It's I just can't wrap my head around how like depressed some people can get when they're like, I did never want to be this. This is not what I thought that the military was.
It's like a linking between patriotism and sacrifice, isn't it?
Yeah.
So like
Yeah,
instead
but
of like
it
heroism is like one of the main driving factors towards like people being, feeling like there's something bigger, isn't it?
yeah, it borders uh like mentally deranged at times.
Yeah.
It borders like I don't know. I don't know really how to describe it. It borders on just when you talk to somebody that's like that, it borders on like, wow, are you okay? Like there's something that's definitely really wrong with you if you it's like I think there's a word for it, but I can't remember what it's called. It's like noble suicide or whatever, like
Hmm.
heroic suicide, where you don't want to die unless it's for a good cause, but you do want to die at the same time. It's a very very strange thing to talk to people about if you ever
Yeah.
meet somebody that's like that.
It's like I think it's glorification too, because like you like watch movies and TV shows and
Yeah,
all that kind of stuff,
absolutely.
and like the hero is always the person who sacrifices themselves in front of others, and and was always remembered in like some glory, you know what I mean, like, but at the same time it's like, a lot of people like who are either military or in positions of power, generally speaking, are doing it, they're not doing it for that per se. They're doing it because they want to like, do a job. Do you know what I mean? Like so a lot of the people you'll find that are the best, or are the best in their job in the military, are the people who work hard, not the people who want to like be the hero. Do you know what I mean? Like the team leaders are the ones that are going to be remembered, because they're the ones that led everyone to safety, not to death. Like so
Yeah.
it's kind of like, do you know what I mean? Like you don't remember Superman, Superman's gone. He's done. You
Mm,
remember Robin? He was the guy pulling all the strings. Like,
yeah.
I reckon
And
that's more
it's
accurate.
it's such a weird atmosphere too, because when the Vietnam War was happening, it was the military was really looked down upon in like the 60s and 70s in the United States. People didn't like the military. They didn't
Yeah,
like soldiers. They didn't like veterans, which is why we have such a high rate of like Vietnam veterans that are homeless or unrecognized, because is the United States society wise did not like soldiers. They didn't
mm,
believe in the causes that they were fighting for. So in the late 80s and 90s, there was a huge media campaign push to change the Americans' perspective of soldiers and of the military, to consider all of them as heroes. And now there's phrases that are constantly pushed around like, oh, you're the less than 1% because less than 1% of people sign up to join, or you're um, if I every single time I tell somebody I was in the military, I always get a thank you for your service. And while that comes from a good place, it's like I honestly hate hearing that, and I'm not the only one. I know
yeah,
multiple people that are active still, and they don't know what to say to thank you for your service, because we haven't done anything. There's
yeah,
nothing we do. Like we do a day-to-day job, especially if you're active duty. That's It's a 9 to 5 job. You work for the government. That's what it is if you work active duty. You're actually less likely to get deployed in active duty than if you were like in the reserves or the National Guard. Well, the National Guard's more deployed stateside, to like
yeah,
natural disasters and stuff. But you're more likely to be deployed in the reserves because active duty members, their 9 to 5 job is in the U.S. every day with the government. If
yeah,
they deploy, who does their job? You know what I mean? So it's such a strange concept to have people look at the military so differently, and have such a push to love and respect soldiers and for the sacrifices that they give, even
yeah.
though if you look back 50 years ago, that wasn't the case.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, just like they came back heroes from World War II, and everyone glorified them. And then they went to Vietnam and they pushed the hearts and minds and stuff. No one ever really believed it because they were like, well, we just got out of a war. Why do we want to get back into one? Do you know what I mean? And then like,
And the hearts and minds weren't. There was so many like shady things that were happening during Vietnam
oh, of
with
course,
how
yeah.
heavy guerrilla warfare turned out. Because after the World Wars, we had trench warfare, and then guerrilla warfare. We had to deal with Vietnam, and people didn't agree that people didn't think it was our fight to be fighting. And as the U.S. does, we stick our nose in places that it shouldn't be, especially with our military.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's a power thing, right? And also a resource thing.
Absolutely,
Like
yeah.
you've got to make sure you have feet on the ground when you want to cause problems with other countries. The thing with the US, and the thing like this is the thing about the US for me. Like I love the United States as a country. Like I've been there a few times now, and I have a lot of friends who live there, and the culture for me is not as bad as people make it out to be. Like from someone who's watching from the outside in. Like, I know a lot of my mates who are Australian who've never been to America who think America is like hell. You know what I mean? And they think they sit here and they watch all the news. You know what I mean? They watch all the politics and all of
That's
it,
what it is.
and they
Yeah.
just think to themselves, "Why would you want to live there? It's so bad. It's so horrible." I'm like, it's actually not that bad. Like I mean, it's just like the thing with it is that it's actually not that bad. It's more the fact that they highlight the bad stuff. So it's like for instance, if you had a product like a food product, right, and there was one bad review and no one else made a review, right, but the product was really good, you'd believe it was bad. Like that's
Yeah.
this is the thing. Like so when the news just like what it does is it just pushes and pushes and pushes and pushes all the conflict narrative, right, which is again not it's more 1% than 10%. You know what I mean? And then all the rest of the good stuff is just thrown in the bin because it's not news. Like no one
It's
wants
not
to.
what sells. Yeah,
Yeah, it's
absolutely.
like you don't when you go to a restaurant, you don't read the good reviews. You read the one bad review and the 5,000 good ones, right? And then you go, oh well, that guy said the curry was bad. I'm not going to eat there. Like
Yeah.
it's a mental thing. Like it doesn't make any sense. Like, but it's human nature because humans thrive on negativity sometimes because they push towards it because it's interesting to them because the conflict doesn't directly affect them, right? But
Yeah.
they get to fucking watch from a distance and they get to enjoy it. Do you know what I mean? Like
It's
people.
human nature to
Yeah,
enjoy
people like
drama,
that
for
kind of
sure.
shit. I don't know. Like, I don't find it that exciting. I'm kind of like more of a person where I'm like, if you surround yourself with negativity, all you get is negativity, right? So, like, I kind of like try to push myself away from that, but I educate myself on it too. Do you know what I mean? So, like,
Absolutely, yeah.
if someone says to me something when it comes to politics, I'm kind of like, we can talk about this. Do you know what I mean? Like, because I've got knowledge on this, we can talk about it. But if I don't, I generally like, well, what do you think about it? Tell me. And then on top of that, I can't give my opinion if I'm not educated on the topic. That's the way I use common sense, obviously. But if something doesn't sound right, it probably isn't right. You know what I mean? Like you've got to know what you're talking about when it comes to certain topics. I think a lot of people in the US, or from my perspective, when I watch things and hear things, is a lot of people aren't educated on anything. They just like to pick sides. Like they like to just like jump on a bandwagon because they like to be part of something. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
the
absolutely.
tribe
As an
mentality.
American citizen, I absolutely agree
Yeah.
with that for sure.
It's
And
just,
you have it
yeah.
on both sides. You can say it's the conservative party and all of the conservatives are dumb and they all want to jump on this bandwagon. But regardless of what party, you could look at a liberal party too and say the same thing, right? It's
Yeah.
I guess it boils down to an argument of morality of what you pick and what you blindly follow, and what you pick that you blindly follow can be morally better than the other, but it's all pretty shit if we're being
Yeah,
honest.
it's clusterfuck. You just got like the thing for me is, and I've always said this, um, even looking from at the perspective of Australian politics, right? Australian politics is probably the most boring shit you've ever seen. But the problem with Australian politics is every single one of them is just in it for the money. They don't give a shit about anything else, and it's so obvious, right?
Yeah.
Because like they don't they the thing is Australians have very short memories when it comes to politics. So like they'll say something really like what do I say?
Didn't you have somebody that like left Australia to go to Hawaii during like the biggest bushfires that you guys have ever had in
Look,
Australia.
the optics of it weren't good for him. I can tell you that much. But look, at the end of the day, every single politician in my eyes is just in it for the money. They don't actually care about the people. They don't actually want to do anything for anyone. They didn't get into it for the same reasons. They got into it for money, and they're doing it for the pension, right? Now, for me, I've always said to like my friends and family and stuff is that, especially in Australian politics, they should work voluntarily. Like they should work voluntarily, and then they should be out. They should come from a profession where they've made their own money, right? We've had a couple of prime ministers in the past who have done that, who have actually been not too bad. The problem is their party corrupted them in a certain direction. So it's kind of like, you know, you have people who could actually potentially work. You know what I mean? They come from a big background of like, so they owned a law firm or something, right? And so they've got plenty of cash. They come into politics and, you know, they do it on the basis that they want to make the world a better place rather than getting paid hundreds of thousands of dollars, right? Because they don't need the money.
Would you, if that was the case, if all political offices were volunteer based, would anybody actually step up and do it?
The people that deserve it would, right? Because you know there's going to be that 1% of people who are just out there to help people. Like actually, you know those people. Like there are people like that out there. So you know what? You give them the opportunity to go do the job because no one else will want to do it. You know what I mean? So like the people who are, and it will be people who are doing it because they either have their own money or they don't need money, because they're not going to do it for a job, are they? They're doing it because they love it. So I think in any aspect, I mean, look, everything works in theory, right? You know, but in practice, I don't know. But just as a sort of like a thought provoking thing, it could work. I think, like, you know, practically the world doesn't work like that, obviously, because you know, money drives the world, and obviously being a volunteer, someone's going to try and push money in your pocket. Like it's going to happen. Corruption is everywhere. Like we know this, but look, it might be a step in the right direction at some point in time, but you know, it'll never happen. It's just a theory idea.
On top of the fact that if you want somebody in an office that is pushing politically or socially for good, you have to also make the argument that that person's moral good, or what that person deems is the best for society, not everybody is going to agree with either.
Of course,
whether they're in it for the right reasons or not.
Yeah, exactly. So you need opposition to that.
Everybody can ever see eye to eye on anything ever.
Yeah, of course, but also you got to remember the political system was never designed as a two-party preferred. Right? There was never supposed to be two parties and one disagreed with the other just basically because they disagree. Like that's
and then picking the lesser of the two evils.
That's fucking ridiculous. Like the fact it's like saying, you know, so the sky is blue, right? And then the one person on the left was like the sky's red, and the person on the right says the sky is green, right? We all know the sky is blue, but you have to pick a side. Do you know what I mean? Like it's ridiculous. Like why can't you meet in the middle and be like, oh, actually it's blue. We can agree on that. Like why is that so hard? Especially with like American politics is very polarizing. Like one side agrees with one way and the other side just disagrees completely. And you can't have a conversation about it.
Well, there's actually a few studies that have been done that shows that a lot of Americans aren't as polarized as media would have you believe.
Of course, I agree. I believe that 100%.
But what is pushed a lot is seeing how stupid the other side is, and you're always right because you picked this side and you agree with these things.
All about winners.
Look, we have videos of these guys doing stupid stuff and this politician being dumb. You picked the right side. Like it's always the most extreme cases that get pushed. Of
course, yeah, exactly. I mean, it frustrates me. Like, I think Australian government's actually starting to morph a little bit because, I mean, this election we just had, we've had more independents voted in than actual party prefers. So, like more than for a few decades. Like, it used to be, you know, in our country, it's Labor and Liberal, right? Our Liberal being sort of like conservative, and Labor being the red. Like Labor, the colors are opposite here, right? So like you know, Because Democrats are
Cybersphobia.
blue, right, and Republicans are red, and then it's the opposite for us. So the Liberals are blue, and the Labor Party's red. Now the Labor Party say basically they, for them their base is the working class. You know what I mean? That kind of area, and the Liberals is more country big business. You know what I mean? So like also city big business as well, but it's like a coalition party of like both the National Party, which is the party that controls the country side of things, so like coal and mining and that kind of thing, and then the Liberals, which is like the Conservative Party of the cities and stuff like that. So they have like what is called a coalition party. So they have joined together to form a majority for the government. Now this election we had probably, I think it was an additional like 8 independents voted into the Senate. Because a lot of independents won what are usually city Liberal seats, which is good, I think, for the world or for the country, sorry, because more independence means more discussion. Do you know what I mean? So like when they form government in most countries, they don't expect there to be 2 parties. They expect there to be multiple parties that have to come to an agreement. And there's never a majority government that can just decide whatever they want. Do you know what I mean? So that was the whole point of checks and balances in a government. Now, to have that in both Senate and House here is actually going to be a benefit. The issue at the moment, though, for me, I think for most Australians too, is a lot of independents have to have a party preference, right? So even if they're an independent, they still have to say they're going to vote one way or the other.
Well, that's an issue in the United States too, because we weren't like, our system set up to be a 2-party system is incredibly flawed, because more than often there's a third party that a majority will agree with. However, they can't vote for that third party because it will just take away votes from one of the bigger dual majorities, leaving winner the other majority, right? Like, so if you have a conservative party and a liberal party, and you have a third party, and that third party has maybe a little bit of topics and interests in both parties that you agree with more. Maybe it's more liberal sided, and the United States liberal is a little bit different than Australia, but maybe it's more liberal sided, right? Like it's like for gay marriage, right? For example, because that was a very liberal push in the United States. But if you vote for that third party, all you're doing is taking away votes from the Liberal Party, and you will split the votes between the third party and the Liberal Party. Therefore, the Conservative Party will win in that aspect. And that's always been the case in the United States.
Yeah. So, I mean, like because I watch a lot of things on American, politics and stuff. I find it really interesting, to be completely honest. Like, it's one of my favorite topics, and not because of the animosity from it. Like, it's more because of the how I like to see how people think. Do you know what I mean? Like, one of my favorite things to do is to try and listen to one extreme and the other, and then try and decipher why they think those things, or how they came to those conclusions, or whatever. Like, I'm not the kind of person that's going to sit on a fence and be like, I don't agree with that, and I agree with that. I'm the kind of person that would rather make my own decision based on all of the extremes of both right and left. You know what I mean? So it's kind of it's more like a libertarian stance on things. But when the libertarian stance on things is to, be impartial down the middle, that's where I draw the line. I'm not doing that. I'm going to figure out why I think how I think and where I stand, and I'm going to go to it, because
you could prefer a neutral stance, more of a kind of a cheat way out.
100%.
I don't know what I'm gonna pick, therefore I'm not gonna pick either.
Exactly. That's a cop out. You have to. It's not that you have to pick. You can formulate your own opinion based on more than one fact, right? So say one person thinks one thing and another person thinks another thing. You don't have to then pick a side per se. You can use both opinions and formulate your own opinion. That's not sitting on the fence, okay? Because the person that sits on the fence is saying, I don't know, don't ask me, I'm scared, leave me alone, right? Yeah. That's that person. You're not that person. You're the person that's I agree with you here, but I don't agree with you here, right? But I agree with what he said there. And so you can formulate your own opinion. Do you know what I mean?
Another huge issue in the United States is people are either too afraid or don't understand that you can change your mind when
Yeah.
you realize that things change in the world. If you are
So
firm
true.
in place about a topic and you learn more information and you re-educate yourself, you can change your opinion. You
That's
can
just,
do
yeah.
that.
That's just called being smart.
Yeah.
You know, like, so if say one topic you've talked about for your entire life and you agree with, and then all of a sudden new information comes out without that topic and it changes your opinion. You're allowed to say it. Like, you don't have to,
And
you
if
know,
you see somebody who does that, you're allowed to let them change their opinion and not
exactly.
hold it against them forever until time ends because they
So
believed a
true.
certain thing and they were uneducated about it.
Yeah, it's so true. I know I've noticed that a lot actually on both
Mhm.
sides, to be
Oh
honest.
yeah, absolutely.
And like, so there'll be people like, you know, who had one opinion about one thing. Like, I couldn't give you specifics without getting in trouble. I'll be honest. Like, there's certain topics you can't talk about, but you know, you see it happen. Like, people will be like, you know, firm believers in this, fuck that guy, fuck that guy, fuck that guy. And then all of a sudden they're like, okay, maybe that guy's all right. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, it's
And then
kind of,
you have people that see that and they see that switch and they gatekeep it for whatever reason.
I don't
And
get
they're
it.
like,
It's
"Oh,
like,
you were like this before." Well,
yeah.
who gives a shit?
I change my mind. Like, I'm a human. I make mistakes. There's people make mistakes. Okay, they're allowed to. It's human nature to make mistakes. It's human nature to correct yourself or, you know, disprove something you thought was right before. And again, it goes both ways. Like, people don't understand that. Well, a lot of people don't understand that you don't have to just like. Okay, this is gonna, like, I'll formulate my thoughts right here. The team-based society pisses me off. Okay, it's not only is it setting people back from actually making progress in the world, but it's sad to watch. It's like, this is not a team sport. Okay, like,
The herd
politics and
mentality of it all.
government and all that kind of stuff. It's not a team sport, right? It's not supposed to be. It's supposed to be two places that disagree with each other coming together to formulate an agreement in order to get on with life. It's like,
Yeah.
if you spend the entire time yelling at each other, nothing gets done. The country gets worse and everybody else suffers, and they just have to watch the bullshit. And like you said,
I
probably
completely agree.
99% of people in America don't give a fuck. They're just like, you know what? Let's just get on with it. Like, fucking figure it out. Like,
I think that's why we probably have so many people that don't talk about politics or on that fence that you talked about. But I completely agree that it was never this two-party system that we have in place was never meant to be constantly putting people at odds with each other. It was meant to,
exactly.
hey, we have this one issue. We have this extreme of this person thinks this way, and this extreme of this person thinks this way. They need to come together to find a good solution that'll fit not everybody but most people to help progression, right? It was
Correct.
never meant to, for me to sit here and if I hear that somebody is a part of a certain party already have a predisposition of that person, right? It was meant to be like, okay, well, this should be an open space for us to be able to talk about why we think certain things or why we think the way that we think about a certain topic so that maybe we can both agree on something eventually.
Yeah. See, the world's always going to be like 10 steps behind itself if that continues.
Mm.
And like, you know, the only way countries will progress in any way, shape, or form is if they throw that shit out the window and they actually start to work as a team.
I
That's
learned something recently, actually on the podcast with Schmulzy, that absolutely blew my mind. If and it's gonna be very opinionated, but on my end,
that's
but
right.
it's something that I'm hard set in, and especially on Pride Month, I am absolutely hard set in, and you won't change my mind. Is that you guys had a vote on whether gay marriage could be legalized because we talked about gay marriage on the podcast and how it was legalized in the United States before in Australia.
Yeah.
And Simon told me that there was a census sent out to people and they checked like yes or no, and it blew my mind. I was like, you're telling me they sent a post in the mail and it said, do you think gay people should have the same rights, yes or no? And only like 50 some percent of people said yes. And that
Yeah.
was crazy to me.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it was more than that. I think it was about 73% yes.
Okay, so
because
I am taking
yeah.
facts from Simon, so I
Yeah,
would say
yeah. No,
so,
I took part in
but
it. I remember it. So yeah, for the thing with that is because it was constitutional law, right? So to change constitutional law, you need to run a census of the people. So that's why they had to do that. The government, like to their credit, actually, majority of the people in government agreed with it. So even
that's good.
even conservative government officials said, yeah, let's go with it. The
And
only
I will
people that
say,
opposed it were religious people, and
yeah,
that's just the way it is. You know what I mean?
I
Like that.
will say that your government definitely is set up differently because you don't have a constitution that you base your laws off of like the United States does.
We
And
have a constitution,
you have a
but
constitution.
we do, but we don't use it. And so
I
the
think that's what I've been told.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So the Constitution of
very
Australia is so old. Like so
very
it came
stark different than the United States because people live, breathe, and eat the Constitution here.
like yeah. So the Constitution is like more like guidelines for us. It's not
Mm,
really law. Like the Constitution was written by UK monarchy, right? So like we are a monarchy system. You know what I mean? So that's why we
mm,
have a prime minister and not a president because
mm,
we're not a republic, right? So
mm,
being a monarchical system, we have to adhere to a governor general. The governor general is the head of the country who does nothing but report to the queen, right? And the prime minister is the head of the party who leads the government, right?
mm.
So it's a different sort of system. So the prime minister isn't the person that's in charge of everything. They're more just the person that is the spokesperson for the party that is in power, if that
Mm.
makes sense. And any major constitutional change has to go through the governor general. And the governor general does literally nothing else but takes it, gives it to the queen, and asks for her permission to make it law. It's literally the dumbest thing in the world, but that's where we live because we're part of the Commonwealth, right? So
Yeah.
we have to do those things. It's the same with any other Commonwealth country has to do the same thing. Like they all have to go through their governor general in order to get anything approved.
I mean, we have the same kind of thing in the United States. We do all live under like a federally regulated
Mm-hmm.
um, government, but we also have states' rights that are, in my opinion, extremely important and people forget about a lot. And there are Commonwealth states as well, like Pennsylvania is a Commonwealth.
Yeah.
So when it comes to like jobs or security and finances, things like that, Commonwealth laws are a little bit different by state, and
Yep.
it's a little annoying. But states' rights are incredibly important, in my opinion. Take DC for example. DC is in Maryland, but it's not a part of Maryland and it's not a state.
Yeah.
So I told Simon this and he didn't know this, and I actually didn't know this until I had moved here a couple of years ago, and I live right outside of DC. That DC uh can't DC residents can't vote. I mean
Yeah.
they have an elected official that represents them in Congress, but their congressional representative can't vote on any laws.
Because
Um,
they don't have a big enough populace, right?
I think it's not because they don't have a populace. It's because it's not considered a state.
Okay, like a zoning thing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
because the government owns DC. It is federal grounds, so they don't have the right to have that vote because they're not a state, and only states get the right to vote, and
yeah,
states citizens get the right to vote. And that's why in DC it's such a big thing. You'll see cars everywhere in DC that say taxation without representation, because citizens that live in DC get the same taxes that the rest of us do in any other state, but they don't have the representation in Congress because their representative doesn't get to vote on law.
yeah. I think like from the knowledge that I have on that topic, I think the reason is because no matter who gets voted in, it's going to be a Democrat, right? So I think that's why it's always been blocked from
In
DC.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
that's a
Because
big
they don't want to give
controversy
an
to have.
extra seat to one or other party, and you know
That's
it's
one
going to
of the
be a
big
Democrat
things.
because it's a blue fucking area, right? So like,
Yeah,
there's no way it would be a Republican in any way, shape, or form. So it's literally
that's
just giving a seat to
definitely a big like conspiracy about like
yeah,
why DC doesn't have the right to vote, and a lot of people will say it's one thing or the other, but one of the biggest
yeah,
ones is definitely that DC is very very blue. They're
yeah.
very very liberal, and if
Of
they
course.
were given the right to vote, it would change how and what president, because we go back and forth almost, I think, every few years. We go between Democrat and Republican. We follow that pattern, and if DC had the right to vote, it wouldn't really be that way anymore either.
Yeah,
DC
which
is
is
a very liberal area. Yeah.
yeah, which is not. I don't think it's very good for like you know, especially like even representation. I mean, like DC is not a very big place, right? I mean, you could argue that neither is Hawaii, but
Yeah.
this is the thing. Like,
It's all
if
the
you
power. It's just
you
held in
upset
that tiny little area.
when a country is balanced so separate, like, so when there's such a fucking solid line down the middle, right? If you put something like, you know, if you push a piece into one area and not the other, and then it becomes unbalanced, that's going to cause more problems than create, you know, good outcomes. So I think it's avoiding an issue that could be worse. Like, because how many districts are in DC? Like, how many?
Oh, I don't know.
Because you obviously got to count, you know, your districts as well when it comes to voting, right? So like,
Yeah.
I mean, if they have an additional, say, 5 districts, that could swing a whole fucking election. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's, yeah, I mean, it sucks for the people that live there. I get that, by not having someone who they can ask for an opinion on tax and stuff. But at the same time, like, it's sort of similar to what we have here, because we have the ACT here, right? So New South Wales is the state that I live in, which is where Sydney is. And then in the middle of New South Wales, there's this little fucking dot, right? It's called the Australian Capital Territory. It's its own state, but it's
Like
where the
Rome is to Italy.
yeah. Like the Vatican is, like, to,
Yeah.
you know, in
Not Rome, the Vatican. Yeah, that's
yeah,
what I meant.
yeah. It's like that, but it's just where Parliament is. So that's where Parliament sit. And the ACT is, well, it's not like it's big enough. You could drive around it in a day, though. Like, it's not huge. But it's basically its own state, and that's where the government sit, right? Because during our history, Parliament has moved from Sydney to Melbourne to Sydney, and vice versa, right? Because they can never decide where to have it, because the two most polarized states, you could argue, is New South Wales and Victoria, right? So obviously being Melbourne. Melbourne is very, you know, left wing, right? And New South Wales is probably more right wing, right? So like, the two states are the biggest states. They're the most popularized states, the two biggest cities in the country, and they couldn't decide where they wanted to move government, right? So they decided to put it in the middle. Now, between Sydney, so halfway between Sydney and Melbourne, or so, you know, as close as they could, kind of thing.
About, yeah.
Yeah. So obviously it didn't end up like that, because there was nowhere in the middle that they could put it, because it was all just fucking bush. So then they made the ACT. Now, the ACT was originally part of New South Wales, and then they created their own state. And because the people in Victoria were like, this is unfair, it's in New South Wales. And the people in Queensland were like, yeah, why is it in New South Wales? And then so New South Wales was like, fine, fuck it, make its own state. Like, you know, let's just like cure the problem. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So now it's its own state, which is fantastic, you know, and they have their own laws and they have their own rules and blah, blah, blah. And so, yeah, it's kind of like it worked out for everyone, because I don't know why it had to be a thing. Like how, like, because I think there's a lot of politicians that work in Sydney, because Sydney's sort of like the business hub of Australia. Do you know what I mean? So like the stock exchanges here, and all the big business, like it's sort of like New York, like everything, all the big businesses are in Sydney City, right? So like your telemarketing companies and your internet phone companies and your real estate and all that kind of stuff. And then in Melbourne's sort of like the art capital of Australia, right? So like there's more like you know, there's a million fucking coffee shops, like, you know, people run around the streets just drawing on the walls. Like it's an artistic sort of expression sort of place, you know. That's why you have, you know, you find a lot more people move down there to be part of different cultures, because it's just a little bit more.
Sounds like some place that I'd enjoy a lot.
You would. It's pretty much the gay capital of the world, like when it comes to Australia. And
I've been told that I would do really well or really enjoy California as well, and I've never been to the West Coast in my life, but it sounds a lot like California.
Yeah. And look, I love Melbourne. Like I've been to Melbourne a million times. Like I go there at least twice a year just to go down and just like, I play a lot of poker and stuff, so I usually go down there to play at the casino down there. That we have
I've never been to a casino, maybe that'll be my first time.
Yeah, we have the Melbourne Cup, which is once every November, and it's like a big horse racing event. So I love to go to that, and that's always something that I enjoy, like big carnival, you know, like it's a very nice place to go. I wouldn't live there personally because it's just not really like I'm a Sydney guy. I've always grew up in Sydney. I lived in Sydney my entire life. You know, I lived in Queensland for a while, but Queensland is like it's like Sydney, but like slowed down. Like, do you know what I mean? Like Sydney's a busy fucking place. Sydney's like New York, right? Like you just walk in and everyone's going and everyone's got somewhere to be, right? Like that's Sydney. Whereas like Brisbane and like Queensland is sort of like everyone's got somewhere to be, but they're not in a hurry. Do you know what I mean? So when I lived up there, I was kind of like, why is everyone moving so slow? You know, like it was very kind of like more relaxed than I thought. Like, I don't know. It was just kind of interesting comparison. And then Melbourne is just like, there's always something happening. Do you know what I mean? Like there's always something going on. You know, a lot of protesting and a lot of activity in the city that isn't business related. Do you know what I mean?
Mm.
So like, and that's because it's like well, from you know my experience being there, it's sort of like an area where there's more expression, and more people want to be heard, and more people are heard because the government is of a different perspective, good and bad, I think. Do you know what I mean? Like production wise, probably not great, but it's really good for morality, right? Like so, like it's It depends. It depends where you want to be. But either way, it's going to cost you $1 million to live there. So, like, do you know what I mean? Like, the median house price in Sydney is like 1.1 million. Like, there's just,
Oh my God.
it's actually insane. Like, we don't earn that much.
That's exactly how it is in DC. You get like a small like 2-bedroom house, 2-bedroom, 2-bath, and if it's in DC, it's probably over $1 million for that house. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And they're not even like great houses. It's just
No.
because of the area that you live in. I live outside DC and I pay way too fucking much for a 1-bedroom apartment.
It's crazy. Like one of the houses, I was reading in the paper, I think it was one of the houses on the harbour in Sydney went for $70 million.
Jesus.
Right?
Jesus. That's more money than I could dream of.
That's crazy. Like, I mean, it's my parents, I talked to them about like house prices and stuff. When they bought their house, it was like not even, I think it was like close to like less than half $500,000 or something. And that was in like 1997 or something, right? And like it's probably 10 times that much now. Do you know what I mean? And they say to me, and I say to them, I was like, I'm never going to own a house, like ever, because there's just no way. Like there's just no, it's like, unless I move 3 hours north, 3 hours west, or 3 hours south, I'm never going to own property. Like it's just impossible because Sydney is ever expanding. Do you know what I mean? So like the more people that move here and live here, like it's like LA, right? Like everybody lives in clusters, right? Everybody's close enough to fucking touch each other's toes. And then all of a sudden they just keep moving this way until they hit the mountains, and then they move that way, and they move that way. And it's like a ever expanding population that's never going to stop expanding because more people want to live in major cities. And then the prices go up and they keep going up. And then the wage gap gets more and more further and further away from each other. So you've got people who are sitting on the poverty line, and then you've got rich people sitting next to them. It's crazy to me. Like when I was in LA, I saw it. Like it was just like, I walked down Rodeo, right? And like, it's just like celebrities and like, just shops that you would never fucking shop at because they're just like ridiculous. Like, and I'm walking around there.
Stores and like,
I went 4 blocks towards West Hollywood, and there's just fucking hobos everywhere. Like
that's one of the biggest and like craziest things that I saw when I moved to DC.
That's wild, right?
Is DC has one of the largest homeless populaces, I think, on the East Coast.
Yeah.
And it's so weird because you will see like these huge marble buildings and like museums and Capitol buildings and crazy stuff, and then right next to it, right by the like, there's a river that goes through DC, and you'll have these like the skyline of like the Washington Monument and the Capitol building and all these like marble buildings and museums, and then right next to the road that goes by like the park and the river, it's just like homeless camps everywhere, under freeways, every single turn there's homeless camps, there's tents all over DC. And it's such a stark contrast to look at. It's crazy to me to see a huge marble building and a guy with a tent sleeping on the grass outside of it.
And it doesn't like, well, this is the thing. This is what happens when I think it's an overpopulation thing, right? Because obviously it's obviously a wage problem, and it's obviously like a, you know, what would you call it? Like a wealth issue, right? Because, you know, a lot of people, the skill gap is crazy wide. You know what I mean? Like there's people who are making millions of dollars a day, and there's people making $1 a day. It doesn't make any sense. Like it's crazy. But at the same time, I mean, when it comes to, I read Michael Schellenberger's book, San Francisco. Have you been to San Francisco before? It's way worse than San Francisco. So like San Francisco has literal 10 cities. Like there is, it's like businesses, and you look outside the window and there's just a sea of tents, right? And he basically talks about the fact that it's more of a mental health problem than anything. Like because he's obviously someone who's worked with all of homeless people and mental health, and he said to me, not to me obviously, in the book itself, is that it's all the mental health problems are basically what is causing people to be stuck out in the streets. He's like, it's because just drugs are so easily accessible in these 10 cities. People go there because they can get an easy fix, and they stay there, right? Because they're stuck there because they're like, they can't afford the drugs, but then they have to work for this and that, the other. And it's just, it's like a never ending cycle. You know what I mean?
They can't afford the help that's needed either.
That's what I mean. And like, how can you ever afford to live in a house if all you ever do is spend your money on drugs? You know what I mean? Like it's a crazy circle. Like it's a really good read. Like it's
one of the biggest things that happened in the United States was the opioid epidemic, where there was and I could absolutely be wrong about this, but I had read that it was a doctor who was giving out prescribed medication that wasn't necessary for pain relief.
Yeah.
And it started addictions in a lot of people, and it just like trickled downhill from there.
Yeah,
He eventually lost his license after it had happened, but that's why it was like the beginning of the biggest drug boom in America. I used to live in northeastern Pennsylvania, so about 2 hours outside of New York, 2 or 3 hours outside of New York, near Scranton, PA. And the biggest issue there was heroin, and it was because of the drug trade from New York to Baltimore and DC. And it went straight through that city if you didn't go through Jersey, and nobody wants to go through Jersey. But so the heroin like road or trail was from New York to DC and Baltimore. And that's one of the biggest lines of drugs and drug dealing in the United States is on the East Coast.
Crazy.
From New York to Baltimore and through DC, and you hit major cities in Pennsylvania like Philly and Pittsburgh there as well.
Yeah, there's just so much money to be made in pharmaceuticals. You know what I mean? Like it's one of the it's one of the biggest industries in the world when it comes to money, but also it's one of the most corrupt. People don't realize how many lawsuits some of these fucking places have been through and are still going through. And we've thrown all our
and pay for it because they have the money to.
That's what I mean.
Pharma is backed heavily by government. I mean, it's amazed me that they haven't made marijuana medically legal yet, because it is such a piggy bank for the federal government. Like it really is. If they can tax marijuana, like marijuana is legal in DC, which is also really, really weird to me. It's not legal in Maryland. I think you can have like a certain amount of like ounces on you at a time before you're hit with like a charge of like reason to distribute or something like that.
Possession, yeah.
But it like you can go to DC and there's weed shops and you could be perfectly fine. Most people I know that live in Maryland get their weed from DC.
You would,
Um,
right?
but it's still crazy to me how America hasn't capitalized on that, and they still see it. A lot of people still see it as such a criminal thing to smoke weed. Um, and it blows my mind because you have people that are when I was in a medical facility for almost 2 years after I got home from deployment, working on some medical issues that I had. And you had people that were still like active duty. You're still active duty while you're there getting medical treatment, in the Air Force, taking marijuana and CBD supplements for like pain.
Hmm.
And yet it's so criminalized and still seen so down on. Maybe not as much as it used to be even a couple of years ago, but it blows my mind that the government hasn't capitalized on such a big industry, such a
Yeah.
huge industry.
Well, it's still criminalized in Australia.
Yeah.
So like it's still illegal here. Like we can't, you can't grow your own, you can't have your own, you can't do any of that. Like if you have any sort of anything on you, you go to jail. Like it's crazy to me. Like whereas like, medicinally it's available. Medicinally it's available, but it's synthetic as fuck. Like it's oils and bits and pieces like that. It's not like you're getting a THC product. Like it's more just the CBD qualities of different bits and pieces, pills and oils and shit. Because it's always been something that's been available to my brother because of he has Crohn's disease. So they've always, like there is a medicinal option for certain bits and pieces, but it's not worth having. Do you know what I mean? Like the product they're supplying is shit. It's
Yeah,
not good
absolutely.
enough.
And I
So
can 100% tell you from personal experience. So I have a fractured back and I have PTSD, and I've done multiple different kinds of medications to help with these things. I can't tell you how many different kinds of pills I've taken or whatever I've taken. I also have MDD and anxiety, and I can't use CBD. CBD doesn't do shit for me. It does absolutely nothing for me.
yeah,
Some people take CBD and it relaxes them and it's great. They can take synthetic drugs and be perfectly fine. I can't do that.
yeah,
Um, there was something else I was going to say. Oh yeah, it's so weird to me as well how you can go from some states, like I think Texas is a good example of this, where you can't have any amount of weed on you. But I went to Chicago last year, and you can grow your own weed plants in your backyard, and it's perfectly fine. And the states are so split on that. It's such a stark difference. But weed is such a big industry. You
yeah.
go to Texas and you can't have it, and you go to Louisiana and there's tons of shops there, and they're almost right next to each other.
Yeah. I mean, look, each state is going to have different opinions on different things. I understand that, like, state legislation can organize that, and the people of the state, if they really want something, they'll push for it, they'll get it. You know what I mean? Like it's sort of, I think the power of the people really matters when it comes to state votes. And a lot of the time that'll work, right?
Yeah.
Unlike Australia, like that's not the case because we have states, we have state governments, but honestly, like the state government only pushes power when they want something out of you. It's never the opposite way.
It's for me to be in a state that if you have like over 5 ounces of marijuana on you, you get hit with jail time. But then at the same time, you have people that I knew that were microdosing on ketamine and shrooms because of their PTSD in the same area.
Yeah. I think the alcohol thing for me is the craziest thing.
When I say like microdosing on these things, there are like systems in place. Like this is like studies and stuff. This isn't just people going and getting ketamine off the streets.
Oh yeah,
and being
100%.
Like, yeah, I'm gonna take this. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Now the alcohol thing for me is the worst. Like especially in this country, we are a country that is like formulated on alcoholism. Like our entire motto is have a beer, basically. Like every single person in Australia drinks. Like it's not untoward to say that. Like it's embedded in our culture. You know what I mean? And to be okay with like people who just get fucked up all the time on alcohol, it's fine. You know what I mean? It's fine. Just do it, right? But if you smoke weed, you go to jail. That's crazy to me because alcohol is probably one of the worst things you can ever have. Like,
Yeah.
and I speak from experience. Like, it's one of those things that is just like, it ruins people's fucking lives. And like, you know, when you go out with your friends, if you don't have a beer, you basically get alienated from that group. Like, it's just like, oh well, you're no fun. It's like, why do you have to have alcohol to have fun? Because it's the
Yeah.
culture. Because that's what it is. You
Yeah,
know,
absolutely.
it's that mentality. It's like, you got to have a beer to have fun. Like, that's
And
literally been drilled into us since we were fucking children.
don't get me wrong, putting anything in your lungs that's not air is not healthy for you. I
No, I
vape,
agree.
right?
Yeah.
And I I understand that that's bad for you, but alcohol here is definitely much worse.
Yeah.
It's a slow killer. It's you literally are poisoning your body to feel good, and I say that, and I drink. Like,
Yeah.
I drink and I know it's bad for me. It's carbs that you don't need. It makes you gain weight. It's
It
bad for
fucks
your liver.
it fucks with
It
everything.
literally poisons you. But that's something that I can strongly agree with. That weed is not the evil here. Alcohol, like, you have people that get DUIs constantly, ruin other people's lives, ruin their lives. It's definitely much worse. I'm lucky that I think I surrounded myself with friends that are very good, because we used to go drinking, like when I was in the medical facility at Walter Reed. I we went to a bar. It was called TJ's. We went there every single day, if
Yeah.
not if not, there was like once or twice a week where we wouldn't go. So almost every single day we would go out and we would go drinking, but we definitely had a couple of people that just didn't drink. And our bartenders were super cool. Like, they knew when we walked into the door, our group of friends walked into the door, what our drinks were, and they knew the people that didn't drink immediately what their drinks were too. Like, we had
Yeah.
one guy that came with us who was, I believe he was an officer, who was getting medically discharged. He would always get 2 Diet Cokes every single time we went drinking, and that would be his drink of the night. And we were all cool with it. And I think I'm lucky and glad to have surrounded myself with people that are fine. If you don't drink, you don't drink, right?
Yeah.
And you're okay with that. But I can definitely understand a culture, especially from a military perspective, because military people like to drink a lot.
Yeah.
That if you don't drink, you get alienated. If you don't drink, then you're not having a lot of fun. Then you're judging everybody else because you're not drinking. People assume that for sure.
Yeah, 100%. And unfortunately, that's just Australian culture. I think it's never going to change. It's always going to be the same. And, you know, it used to be, I mean, Australia's had a real big problem with drugs and stuff, because Australians don't do anything in half measures, right? So when it comes to Australians and Australian culture, you'll find that a lot of Australians, you give them the opportunity to have something, they'll have it in very large quantities. Do you understand what I mean? So like, it's alcohol is available, we'll drink a whole fucking case of beer, right? If cigarettes are there, and have a whole pack of cigarettes a day. Like, there's no chill for a lot of Australians, I find. And a lot, because I've worked in trades, right? So I worked in trades, and I've worked in that industry of, like, the working class industry. A lot of those people, they work very, very hard. Very hard. And at the end of the day, they crack open a beer and they have about 10 to 20 of the fuckers, and then they go to bed. Like, it's just the way they are. That's just their thing. That's their funny.
I don't think a lot of people realize that that's really like what alcoholism is.
It is, but it's not.
People talk about alcoholism and you envision like somebody who's constantly drunk all the time and like can't function. Real alcoholism,
functioning.
It's people that function perfectly fine but need alcohol at the end of the day, or need it when they wake up, right?
Correct.
It's an addiction.
Yeah, that's right. And I mean, I had that addiction, literally, and I've kicked it. It was fucking most difficult thing I've had to do in my life, like, bar none, but this is the thing, right? You can't tell someone who drinks a lot, right, to not drink, right? Because then they'll drink more, because they're stubborn and they don't fucking want to listen to you, because their life and they can do whatever they like. And I can tell you that from experience. If someone says to you, maybe you shouldn't drink so much, you're like, well, I'm going to have another one. Fuck you. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you will do whatever you want because it's your life and it's your decision to make. But it gets to a point where you have a self-realization and you're like, maybe I shouldn't drink this much. You know what I mean? Because I feel like shit. You know what I mean? Like, so and then you go, all of a sudden you start to feel better and you're like, wait, this is how normal people feel, right? This is all of a sudden, because you've forgotten how it feels to not be fucked all the time, right? So you just, all of a sudden you're not, and you're just kind of like, you get the withdrawals and you get all the symptoms of like addiction, right? You know, the shakes and the feeling of sadness and you know, because it's depression, right? It makes you depressed because of the you're not getting that endorphin rush of like the feeling of being buzzed, you know.
It's
So
literally,
like,
yeah, the receptors in your brain needing
correct.
what they're used to getting.
It's an endorphin thing. So and then at the end of that, all as soon as your body flushes itself of it, all of a sudden you think clearly and you're like, wow, I feel so much better. Do you know what I mean? Like, you know, my life is different, but it's much, much better than it was before. You combine that with, you know, the things you're supposed to do, like exercise and not eat Maccas, and then all of a sudden you're fucking feeling great. Like, you know, it's just, it's very simple. Like, you know what I mean? Like, but a lot of people can't do it. Like, they just don't have the willpower.
I can't eat McDonald's, man. It
Neither.
hurts
Like,
to eat McDonald's. Eating McDonald's to me is like the equivalent of drinking a gallon of milk.
yeah.
Like, I'm lactose intolerant. It hurts.
Dude, I agree. I can't eat it either. I suck. I struggle. I think the most I'll have if I have a McDonald's is like maybe 3 nuggets. I'm not going for anything extra.
I'll eat the fries. The fries are pretty good. And don't get me wrong, I'll cave in every like once in a while, like once in a blue moon, I'll cave in and get McDonald's because I'll be like, man, I haven't had like a Big Mac in a while, and I really like how it tastes, and I'll eat it and I'll instantly regret it like an hour.
Oh, it's
later,
the
like,
same for
why the
everyone, I
hell
reckon.
did I do that?
It's always instant regret with fast food. Like, you're like, oh, KFC, yeah, I want a bucket of chicken. And all of a sudden you have that bucket of chicken and you get home, you're like, I hate myself. Like, you know, it's no one ever has the reaction of like, yeah, I could go another one of them. Like, no, the reaction is,
Nobody ever says that.
yeah, it's like, no, I
ever
need to pass the fuck out and go to bed because I feel like I'm going to die. Like, you know,
No,
it's
I get to bad. If I eat McDonald's, I'm on the toilet for 45 minutes. It's awful.
No, I just can't do it, man. Like, it's
Luckily, there's like stuff in my area that has like better, healthier like sandwich options and stuff because I'm a big sandwich person. I love. Give me bread with whatever the fuck you put in between it. I'll love it.
yeah.
Luckily, that I have other options. But McDonald's, you go to like Grubhub or like Uber Eats, even if it's not something you frequently order, because I don't order McDonald's super frequently, it's
Yeah.
always top of the list. It's always
course.
so because people eat it all the time. McDonald's, Burger King, Wendy's, stuff like that. So it's
So
always
bad.
right there in your face, like order McDonald's, like get a Big Mac. You know what I mean? And there's ads everywhere for it too. But I don't know. Panera's mac and cheese is always a really good go-to for me. And
Yeah.
again, I'm lactose intolerant. I would rather have mac and cheese than something from McDonald's because it hurts my stomach worse.
That's crazy. I when I was in America, I tried everything, right? Because I was like, I need to try all these things because in Australia, fast food is not the same as it is in America. It's very different, right? Where like, you know, so in America, everything is like bigger portions.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Everything is like extra cheese, extra bacon, extra sauce, extra. It's like in
Extra
Australia,
patty,
everything in Australia is pretty basic, and like fast food used to be a lot cheaper than it is now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like fast food in Australia now is a lot more expensive than you would think. So like if you go like it's like they've tried to go in between healthy options and fast food. And so everything's gotten a little bit more expensive based on that premise, right? So like you could order a salad just as much as you could order a burger. Do you know what I mean? Like, and then you could order a juice or you could order a Diet Coke, but you could also order a coffee. You know, you could also order a tea. Like, it's a weird mix now. Like, it's kind of like, you know, have a wrap or have a Big Mac. Like, you know, one or the other. It's none of it's any good, but like, yeah, go on.
So McDonald's used to have one thing on their menu that like my stomach could agree with, and it was one of the best tasting things, and I absolutely loved it. They used to have chicken wraps. And
Yeah.
they were amazing, and they completely discontinued them. I don't know if they discontinued them in Australia. They're completely discontinued.
No, it's a
in America
permanent
now.
menu on Australian McDonald's.
I am
Yeah.
incredibly jealous because that was the one thing that I absolutely loved was the grilled chicken wraps from McDonald's.
Yeah,
I
they
could
have
eat
heaps
them.
of them.
They didn't hurt my stomach. They were good. They completely got rid of them in the United States.
Yeah. See, like the thing I saw as well, I was in Indiana, right? I went to McDonald's in Indiana and like they had bagels with like sausage in them, right? So like I've never seen that in my life. Like, so like when we order a McMuffin, right? So they're
Mhm.
called McMuffins, right? And we have like, it's like bacon and egg McMuffin or whatever. It's just like bread, like a bun, like a little,
Like a muffin.
yeah, like a muffin bread bun thing. And it's just like whatever is in between. Whereas like I was in Indiana and instead of being a bun, it was a bagel,
Hmm.
right? But the bagel's like made of pure fucking sugar. Do you know what I mean?
Oh,
Like,
is it?
so
I've
it's just
never
like,
ordered it. So-
I had it, right? I was like, yeah, I'll have one of them. I instantly wanted to go to bed. Like, my body couldn't handle it. Like, I was just like, I had one of them and we were driving and I was just kind of like, bro, I think I need to stop for 5 minutes because I was like, I was falling asleep in the chair. Like, it's not good for you. Like, you know, and it was like $1.60 or something. You know what I mean? Like, whereas like in Australia, that would be like $8. Like, it's yeah, it's crazy. Everything is way more expensive. Even on conversion, it's way more expensive to buy stuff. Like, I don't know. Like, I was even going to a supermarket in America, you can tell everything is way cheaper than here. I mean, I understand that the minimum wage is different as well, but like, it's crazy. Like, even the conversion rate being what it is, I think it's like 68 cents to a dollar for us.
Oh wow.
So like, yeah, it's a big push. Like it's you know, it's not as bad as it was. It's been worse, but it's never. I don't think it's ever been better. so when I went over to America, it was 70 cents to the dollar, and which was pretty good. And but everything I bought in America, it was like even buying a beer in America, like you go to a dive, it's like $3 for a beer. You know, in Australia, a beer is $8, $9. Like it's,
Jeez.
you know what I mean?
Jeez.
Drinking because they capitalize on the culture, right? Because they know you're going to buy it no matter how much it costs. So like so put it this way, when I was 18, and I went to a pub, I could buy a schooner. So a schooner is like 420 mils. So it's sort of like between a pint and like a half pot sort
But
of
yeah,
thing,
a little
right?
bit bigger than a pint.
Yeah. Well, a pint's like 600, right? But a schooner's 420, so it's
Oh,
like
so
a
it's
little
like
bit less.
okay.
That was $3 when I was 18. Now it's like 680
Oh
or
my.
something like that. So like in the span of what 15 years, it's doubled plus then some. It's just because of taxes. Like
Yeah,
it's not like beer got more expensive to make.
and that's the same thing in
Like,
with cigarettes, right? Like
oh,
I
cigarettes
used
like
to,
$50 a packet now or something crazy like
yeah.
that.
Oh,
Yeah,
they're more than that in the U.S. It's like
yeah.
70.
Wow.
Um, I used to smoke heavily. I used to smoke a pack a day when I was overseas. About 3 or 4 years ago, I used to smoke a pack a day, if not more,
Wow.
constantly, and it was the single most expensive thing that I spent my money on. Um, I used to smoke Marlboro. What are they? They're like the mint ones. They call them cigarettes because they were like super sweet and minty,
Oh yeah,
and
yeah,
they
yeah.
were like $60 to $70 dollars for a log of them. And
Crazy.
I think that's without tax as well. And tax is different per state, but it's extremely expensive to smoke in the U.S. And
Yeah.
again, it's capitalizing on addiction. Like you said, they know that you're gonna buy it.
Yeah. And this is the thing, like even if you lose, say, 30% of the people who smoke because they can't afford it, the people that do smoke are going to buy just as many. So it's not going to make much of a difference at all, to be honest. Like,
Yeah, because the price got higher. If the same people, even if you lose that 30%, if the same people are paying more, you're
exactly.
still getting a net gain from whatever you lost for people that aren't buying anymore.
That's exactly right. And now
And
I want you
for
to
it,
put
people get that money back, they're gonna come back and buy.
now
So
put that into perspective in Australia, right? Everyone drinks. So, and they still raise the price of alcohol every year, right? So it's just like it's a never-ending cycle of cash, you know? And then you combine that with the gambling, right? And you have like cuz we have advertised gambling here, right? So like every second fucking advert on television is a gambling advert in Australia. So like
absolutely.
it's like well, because they know if you're having a drink, what are you more likely to do? You're more likely to
Spend more
gamble, right?
Yeah.
And now, so the thing I noticed in America is bars separate themselves from gambling, right? So you go to a bar, like a lot of the places I went to in America, you go to a bar, yeah, you can gamble on your phone, right? Whatever. But you're there to have a drink and watch the football without having to worry about all that advertising and all that extra bullshit going
But
on,
what
right?
I will say is if you go to a casino, there will be drinks there.
Oh, of course there will be. No, I've been to Vegas as well. That's crazy. Like, Jesus Christ. Like, that's just next level kind of stuff. But what I'm saying is if you go to a pub in Australia, there is a bar, there is a TV, there is a what we call a TAB, right? TAB is a betting station, right? So you can bet on horses, greyhounds, track, whatever it is, sports. There's just a giant fucking section for it.
Everywhere.
Yeah, a giant section for that right next to the bar, right? So you can gamble and drink at the same time, right? And then the next room over, there's a whole bunch of slot machines, right?
Wow.
So you can take your beer, you can go and put a bet on, and then you can go and put your money in the slot machine. It is every single bar in Australia.
I've never seen that in the United States. I did see that once in one place, and it was in Germany, and it wasn't even like, it was an Irish bar that I went to when I was in Germany, and in the next room there were 2 slot machines, but the only person on the slot machine was some old woman who was like a regular at the bar.
I'm talking
that's
like
something I've never seen.
hundreds. There's hundreds of them, right? So like if you go to a big enough pub or a big enough RSL club, there is like 6-7 bars and then about 1,000 fucking poker machines just sitting there.
Holy crap! Yeah,
it's wild, dude. Like, and
definitely be something interesting for me to see.
And you know, the fucked up part about it is the places that have the most machines and the most access to all this gambling are the places with the lowest per capita incomes.
Wow.
Right? So like you go into the major cities and obviously you have your bars and you have a couple of pokies and whatever. We call them pokies, but you call them slot machines, right? And if you go out west, so further out west towards like the countryside of things where people are making less money and like per capita they're paying less for housing, blah, 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 whatever it might be, there is more of them than anywhere in the whole fucking country. And it's like same as what we were talking about with like homeless and drugs, right? It's like easy access to get there, you stay there, right? Same thing is like if you had the more like access to things, the more people are going to do it because it's easy to do, right? And I think the government takes like 80% of pokies or something crazy like that. So like all this, they're basically getting paid and funneling it all back into the government. Like, and these things don't have a return of like 90%. Like, like, you know, maybe 50. Like, and you're not going to make any money. Like, it's just an addiction, and it drives me insane to see. Like, it's
so pushed. I don't know if it's the same way in Australia that it is in America, but like casinos in America, if you go to a casino, it's highly likely that that casino doesn't have windows to the outside.
Yeah,
It doesn't
no
have
windows.
clocks. There's no clocks. It's all you're basically enclosed into this space of gambling.
Yeah, you know what's even
further to push you to push that addiction, right? So you don't know how much you're spending, so you don't know how long you've been there.
Yeah, the thing with Australian ones too is you can smoke while you play. So like you're not allowed to smoke in the pub, right? You have to, the smoking area is usually joined to the gambling area. So like if you go out for a cigarette or something, you're like, oh, maybe I'll, you know, put some money in the machine kind of thing. It's like, fuck me, dude. Like it's all a scam. It's all a fucking scam. It's just to get like people to just like spend their hard-earned money on shit that doesn't matter. And I like, again, I've been in that trap a few times where I've just been like, what am I fucking doing right now? Like, you know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? It's like, why did I put money in this thing? Like, it's just wild. Like, I mean, I would understand if you go to Vegas or something, right? And I've been to Vegas and like, look, I didn't have a great time in Vegas. It wasn't really for me, right? I understood it. Like, I get why people go. I get like I'm a big poker player. I liked the whole scene, the atmosphere and stuff. It's a little bit too much for me. Like I was just kind of like, I felt like I was like a rat in a maze a little bit. I was kind of like, this is odd. I don't like this. But I understand the concept of having that whole thing in one place where people have to actually physically travel there to go do it. And it made sense. But in Australia, it's just like too convenient. Oh yeah, it's just even the pokies at the airport. I laughed. I was like, wow, this place is.
I've
fucked.
never been to Vegas. I didn't know there were slot machines.
There's slot machines at the airport outside the waiting
That's
gates.
funny.
You can just play
That's
them while you're waiting
hilarious.
for your plane. It's wild. Like it's just like as soon as you land, it's time. Do you know what I mean? Like the memorabilia and stuff. Like there's like you can buy all sorts of cool shit. Like just straight out of the gate. Like it's cool. Look, it's different. It's different. I didn't hate it, but I didn't love it. And look, you can't spend any more than 3 days there. I learned that
Wow.
because 3 days is plenty in Vegas. Like when your hotel room, like, you know, is because all the hotels in Vegas are sealed, right? It's all air conditioning. Basically, you can't open a window, and like
Wow.
it's kind of claustrophobic a little bit. Like it's like okay, but then you go downstairs and the casino I was staying at the Link Casino. You could smoke on the casino floor. So, and I'm not a smoker like at all. So, and I have partial asthma. So I'm like, oh, this is fun. So every time I went downstairs, I would just start coughing because like it was just this haze of fucking cigarette smoke. And like, I couldn't understand it because like it's all being pumped through the air conditioning. Like, so, you know what I mean? Like, so you're basically in this like little tomb of smoke for the entire time you stay there. And I just hated it. I was just like, I don't like this at
I
all. This is fucking
can't
terrible.
stand, especially since I stopped smoking cigarettes. I cannot stand the smell of cigarette smoke. It
Yeah.
is one of the worst things. I hate the smell.
You would fucking hate it, man. Honestly, I wasn't a fan. It wasn't fun. It wasn't fun. So I did, I just decided I was like, you know what? I don't think I'll go back there. I might go back there if it's the World Series of Poker is on or something like that. Because I'd like to watch that, but
Yeah.
or be a part of it even if I could. But yeah, other than that, I'm really not. I'm not looking to go back there anytime soon. I don't know. I guess for me, with America, I love the place. I really do. Like I had some great experiences there. Met some great people. A lot of the places I went to, I would definitely visit and go back. Except LA, 'cause it was weird. I didn't like it. It's just too many people. Like like you gotta understand in Australia, like we have a total population of like 28 million people.
Mm.
Like in the entire fucking country, right?
Yeah.
Sydney has 8 million, right? It's the busiest place. I landed in LA and LA County has like 30 million people. I was just like blown away by the amount of people walking around. It was wild. Even like New York was the same. Like there's like 11 million people sitting on top of each other, and it just blew my mind.
Have
Like
you been to New York?
yeah, I've been yeah.
So that's one of my favorite places to travel to is New York. I don't think that I would ever live there unless I lived outside of the city. But like
Uh,
I don't know, close enough to be able to travel to the city when I wanted to. Like when I lived like 2 or 3 hours outside of it in northeastern Pennsylvania. I
yeah,
enjoyed living there because I could take trips to New York City, and it's something that my family used to do when I was a kid as well. I love traveling to New York City. It's one of my favorite places to go.
I liked New York. I did. It was I don't know. It reminded me of Sydney, just busier. Really, like it was a very similar sort of situation.
You
Um,
see some crazy shit in New York City.
I
I've
know,
seen some
right?
crazy shit in New York City, and I absolutely love it, and I'm here for it.
The thing I noticed the most was the horns. Everybody's
The
beeping all the time.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Oh yeah, it doesn't matter if you were the kindest, sweetest person in the world. If you drive in New York City, you will hate everybody else that's driving in New York City
It's
and yourself.
crazy, right? It's just beeping. I understand. Like if you live in Sydney, you don't hear a horn. Like you hear one every now and again, but it's nothing crazy. In New York, it's just everyone's beeping and no one's going anywhere. It's like, what are you doing? Like, why are you beeping? Beeping is
So
basically the way people communicate. Like,
yeah, that's I will give credit. What horns in cars were originally made for was a way to communicate outside of your car and be like, hey, you should go. It wasn't meant to be like a rude gesture. It
Yeah,
wasn't
yeah,
meant to be
yeah.
like, hey, asshole, you know what I mean? That's what it's turned into, but it was meant to be like, hey, I'm letting you know that like I'm going or that you need to go, like polite. That's what it was originally intended for.
Yeah.
And to give credit to a lot of people that drive in New York, that sometimes that is what the honking is for, but sometimes it's not. It's people just angry all the time about driving.
I think that's sort of like the mentality too, but though, because I found that people in New York are very passionate people. Like they're all very like, loud, passionate,
Very proud to
excitable.
be New
Yeah, it's
Yorker.
like I'm a New
Yeah.
Yorker. Like, like it's just like always yelling and screaming, and I'm like, I'm a pretty quiet person. I'm not really like that loud.
I
So I was kind of laughing at the
I
same
think that's
time.
why
Like,
I like New York.
yeah. I love that.
And I'm big on public transportation. I don't know if you know this, but I don't have a license and I don't have a car.
Right.
I've never had a license before. I've driven cars before.
Yeah.
I got my when I was in college. I got my non-existent license taken away because I was driving without one, which is super funny.
That's hilarious.
But yeah, I'm big on like public transportation. I love as gross as it can be. I love the subway. There's metros that go all throughout DC. I love taking the metros. I love sitting down and just looking out the window of the metros and looking through DC and everything. I
Yeah.
love going to New York subways. You meet some crazy people. I like meeting people. I like meeting people
Yeah.
that are loud and seeing what people are about and what they're passionate about. And New York is definitely one of the places to do that.
No,
That
I
and
agree. Yeah.
a lot of people don't know this, and it blows the minds of people that I've met that aren't from the United States. But in New York City, like right near Times Square, it's completely legal for women to be topless as well. And
Really.
yeah, as soon as I tell my guy friends that, they're like, "Oh, I gotta take a trip to New York." Yeah, but you will see like in Times Square, especially, you'll see people that are like dressed up in costumes to make money, like get pictures, like people that are pretending to be statues or whatever, right?
I've seen it.
It's
Yeah.
the same thing for women. They will go completely bare chest and they'll like paint their chest to get pictures with people for money. There's also a legendary guy there. I don't know his like name or like what his title name is, but he only walks around in a speedo, cowboy boots, and a cowboy hat with a guitar. And he's like a frequenter of Times Square.
New York
He's
is
legendary.
crazy. That's really wild. That's funny as like just thinking about that, it just like blows my mind. Um, I don't know, like culture is different, I mean? Like everything's a little bit different in some way or wherever you decide to go. Like if you try to, public transport in Australia is shithouse. So like that's why you have to have a car because everything in Australia is so far away from each other. Like, each city is 1,000 kilometers away from each other. Like you have to, unless you fly, when flying is expensive right now, like you're not going to fly everywhere. Like even obviously fuel prices have massively gone up, but like, generally speaking, most people drive places. You know what I mean? So like everybody has to have a car. Otherwise you just can't get anywhere. Like we have interstate trains and buses, but they suck. Right. And they only travel on certain days and stuff like that. Like it's wild. Like it's like if I go, so for instance, if I drove to Adelaide, right, my car broke down, I wanted to catch the train back, I'd have to wait till fucking Tuesday. Do you know what I mean? Like it's just wild. Like I don't know. Like
That's something that's at least nice about the U.S. is it could definitely be a lot better because there are places that like I'm big on public transportation too because it's a poverty thing as well. And I grew up in a not so great like neighborhood. And I've lived in just like lower income neighborhoods before, and public transportation is like a big necessity in those areas for
yeah.
people to just be able to get to work, people that can't afford cars, people that can't afford to be driving every day. Being able to spend $2 on a bus fare is a lot easier. And if you don't have that, you're walking. And I've walked to work plenty of times. My first job, I used to walk half an hour up and half an hour back to get to work.
Yeah.
So like public transportation is I think a big necessity, but I'm glad that America has, I think, better public transportation than a lot of places because I can go to Frederick, which is about an hour away from me, and take a bus from Frederick to Pennsylvania, take a 3-hour bus to Pennsylvania to go see my mom. So that's really nice.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, yeah, it's just Again, it's population density over, infrastructure, isn't it? Like, the more people and the more demand, the more likely it is to be built. I think in Australia, the population to demand of public transport is just not there. So, and it probably won't be for a long time. I think anything that happens in your country happens 10 years later here. Like, that's how it feels. Because, like, I mean, I went to, this is going to blow your fucking mind. I went to Los Angeles and I bought a phone in Los Angeles because our phones are all locked to fucking this country.
Okay.
Right? Because our providers are landlocked providers, right? Now, so I said, okay, I'm just going to go buy a phone like in America. And so I just bought a random burner phone and I got a SIM card with, I think it was Verizon. And it was an unlimited phone, so I could do anything I wanted. In Australia, we don't have unlimited plans when it comes to data.
Really?
Data is monetized tax here. Like, you have an internet, so you can get an unlimited internet plan now. You never used to be able to. You can get an unlimited internet plan now, probably like in the last 5 years, right? And you can now use the internet unlimited for a capped price. But you can't do it on your phone. Your phone is like a limit of a certain amount of gigabytes or a certain amount of megabytes or whatever. And then you have to pay per megabyte.
That's really strange. Yeah, that's really strange. That hasn't been that way in America in like 10 years?
More than that. And this is what's wild to me because like I went to LA and I was like, I need a phone. And the guy was like, yeah, it's $80 for an unlimited phone. I was like, holy shit.
I grew up in like the changeover era of like having to pay for extra text messages. Like you can't go to like AT&T or Verizon and find a plan that doesn't have unlimited data.
There's no prepaid anymore.
Yeah.
It's just here. It's unlimited. Take it. See ya. Like just like, and but it's again, Australia is like 10 years behind everything. Like we're still running on copper cables, We don't have fiber optic here yet. Like we do, but only in major cities. Like there's like people in the country sitting around on fucking copper cables, like doing with an upload speed of like fucking 10 megabytes. 10 megabytes a second or something. Like
that's like one of the biggest memes I think I know about Australia is that the internet's awful.
It's just absolute garbage. And like we're living in the 2022, and we still can't fucking upload it fucking 1080. Like, come on, man. Like it seems crazy to me, but it's just the way it is, I don't know. I would like to be able to move over to America and spend some time there. That would be like it's always been one of my goals. Like I was gonna do it this year, but obviously everything that happened with my business and stuff, I just wasn't able to afford it. But I would love to be able to still do that. Like at some point.
If you were to move to America, where would you want to live?
Well, I'd probably go more the middle of the country, to be honest. I'm not looking to move to cities where the taxes are so high. Like I'm more looking to move somewhere like sort of Texas, Louisiana sort of area, that kind of place. And because it's more of like the simplicity, I think. You know what I mean? Like I don't need anything crazy. I would like to just be able to go live on live on a little bit of land somewhere and go and work in a fucking bar and just enjoy my life. I have no fucking.
So America is your retirement plan.
Do you know what I mean? Like that would be the thing for me that I would like to do. Like, just be able to say, I just live in life and enjoying it. Do you know what I mean? Because I've worked very hard in my life. Like I've had a job since I was 14 years old. Like I've never not worked. You know what I mean? Like I've been career driven. Like I've spent 14 years in the same job. Not at the same places, obviously. Like, I worked really, really hard to get to where I was, and then I ran my own business and everything, and I've done all these things, and I'm at this point in my life right now where I'm like, I don't know what I want to do next, you know what I mean? But at the same time, money's not everything, and it never has been. It's just happiness more than anything. If I could just live dollar to dollar and be happy, I'd be happy. Like I don't have an issue with it. Do you know what I mean? Like a lot of people are like, I need to make $1 million or I'm not happy. It's like, well, you're never going to be happy. You're always going to be chasing. You're always going to be stressed. You're always going to be pushing. You're always going to be like a crazy, like it's not gonna. You're never gonna be satisfied. Whereas
I
like,
watched a video once that like really explained some American mentality on that.
yeah,
And one quote that really stuck by me is that the biggest push in America and the biggest mindset in America is the "I'm not rich yet" mindset.
yeah,
That every American believes that they're going to be rich one day or they're going to have a lot of money one day.
yeah.
Or if not the majority of them believe the "I'm not rich yet."
And look, if you work hard enough, of course, there is the opportunity to make a lot of money. There is the opportunity to become, rich. But at the same time, it's not everything. It's really not.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, yes, money provides choice. It does. Like, money provides choice. Money provides comfort. It provides confidence sometimes as
I can
well.
understand the mindset of like, I want to make this money to be able to pay off my debt so I can live more comfortably, even if it's
Correct.
dollar to dollar. I can understand I want to make more money so I don't have to live paycheck to paycheck, therefore I can live more comfortably and be happy.
Yeah.
The mindset of I want to make more money because I want to make more money, I don't understand.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like, look, I understand people like that, like money hungry people, like they need to make more. They enjoy the rush of making more money.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? It's like an endorphin thing. It's like a drug, literal. Like to see more dollars in their account is to feel more successful. You know what I mean? It's that feeling of accomplishing something, and I understand that mentality because I have people I know people like that, and that's their thing. They love it. That's fine. They like to buy the nice car. They like to spend the money on the nice things, and they like to look the part. They like to people to know that they have money. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, but you'll always notice that the people who have the most money in the world don't want people to know.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So like you'll see the billionaire that walks into the room is always the one with shorts and thongs. Do you know what I mean? Like he's always the guy who's in the singlet with the hat on, with the fucking Seiko watch on. You know what I mean? Like you never picture that person as the billionaire, but the person that walks in the Armani suit and tie and the fucking hair done is the poorest person in the room. Do you know what I mean? Because they want to look like they're rich, because they want to feel like that. Whereas the person who already feels like that doesn't need to look like that. They don't care. They're just like, you know what? I just do whatever I want. Like, so it's kind of a funny irony. It's like to get there, you need to look the part, but when you're part of it, you just kind of don't have to worry about it. Like,
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, they say money doesn't buy happiness. I'm sure it makes happiness easier to come by sometimes. However,
It definitely can make it more attainable for a lot
of
people.
course. And happiness to some people is not worrying about debts and not worrying
I think
about stuff like that. You know what I mean? But
I think
some people, happiness is just, being happy. Like, do you know what I mean? Like,
I think the phrase shouldn't be "money doesn't buy happiness" because it can definitely buy you a way to be more comfortable and happy. I
of
think the phrase
course.
should be changed to "money is not happiness."
Yes, I agree. Yeah, 100%. And people say that don't have money. Like, do you know what I mean? But if you have money and you're still depressed and you're still unhappy and you're still drinking yourself to death, like, is it wrong to say?
Yeah.
Like, I don't think so. I think it's more like, I don't know. It's a perspective.
Yeah, you hear that, rich people? You're probably really sad and depressed, so you should give me your money so you don't feel
Yeah,
that way.
exactly. Yeah. So
I'm
my
only
links are in that. No,
talking.
yeah. No, it's funny either way. Before we wrap it up, the conversation has been fantastic. By the way, I knew it would be because I knew the two of us always have something to talk about. So it's nice to have that conversation. Obviously, me being on the podcast with you and Simon for a couple of months back or whatever it was, that was really enjoyable. I really enjoyed doing that.
One of the best guests we've had for sure.
Yeah. You know me, I can talk underwater, so it's we could talk for hours, but we won't because otherwise you'll never get anything done. I know you have a busy day, and you got some stuff to do today. Before we go, tell us a little bit about it, what you're doing later today. Tell us a little bit about the future of what you're doing with your channel and with all your stuff as well. And do you give yourself a little bit of a plug?
Okay. Well, I don't think immediately today I'm doing anything except playing Valorant and hating myself because that's what people who play Valorant do. But this weekend, so my channel raised last week. We raised $600 for Pride Month charity. We raised money for Capital Pride, and Capital Pride is one of the biggest sponsors of the DC Pride Parade and all of the events that happen in DC for Pride. And I actually have this stuff here. We got like a bunch of stuff off of Etsy to give away for free at the Pride Parade. We donated, I think, a little over $360 to Capital Pride themselves, and the rest of it went into LGBTQ artists on Etsy, and we bought these items from them to give away for free at Pride. I'm also going to plug myself at Pride because I'm a flavor of gay and I need attention. So that's what we're doing. I'm trying to get back into my charity streams. I usually do one once a month because it's a good break. I have the same community, and I'm not going to leech them for every dollar that they have, even if it is for a good cause. But I am trying to get back into doing a charity stream once a month. I think Make-A-Wish is the next one on the list. In my Discord, I have people that I have a suggested charity section where you can suggest a charity that you would like to see supported, and then I try to do that as much as I can. Other than that, I don't have any super big plans. My 2-year anniversary is coming up. Oh no, I actually just had my 1 year. I thought it was coming up in August, but I had my 1 year. I've been streaming a little over 1 year on Twitch, and I plan to keep doing it, and make a profession out of it. I would love to keep going with it. Simon and I do a podcast. If you guys don't know who Simon is, people listening probably do know who Simon is.
Yeah, he's been on.
Yeah. He's been a guest here before. Him and I have a podcast my time Thursday morning at 8 a.m. His time Wednesday evening, I think.
10 p.m.
10 p.m. his time. We have a podcast every Wednesday. It's called Professionally Uncensored Podcast, where we talk about anything and everything, and apparently we talk about shit every episode for whatever reason.
It's a good one.
Literal poop. Every episode it comes up. Simon has a literal piss bucket emote I made for him, so that doesn't surprise me.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a little bit about me. I just like to make people happy and yell at video games and hopefully put a little money towards good causes while I do it.
I love that. I mean, yeah, like my channel is very similar. Like that's again, is the reason I got you on. Really enjoyed the conversation, and I wish you all the best of luck with everything in the future, and I will be there to support you as well.
Thank you. Yeah, and same to you. I appreciate being here, and I will always be here to support you and your endeavors as well.
Awesome. All right, I'll talk to you soon.
Okay.